Late July, 2026. Manchester City squad boards a flight to Hong Kong for the start of preseason. 28 players make the trip. Jack Grealish isn't one of them. 5 years ago, this man cost Manchester City £100 million, a British transfer record. 2 years ago, he was lifting the Champions League trophy, the Premier League title, and the FA Cup in the same season. Today, he's training alone, hundreds of miles from his own club, while a Spanish second division side lets him use their facilities out of what looks a lot like professional courtesy. This is the story of how one of England's most talented players quietly became the most expensive afterthought in the Premier League, and why almost nobody at his own club seems entirely sure what happens to him next. Start with the timeline, because the speed of this decline is what makes it so hard to look away from. Aston Villa's boy wonder captain, adored at home, chased by every top club in England, finally makes the move to Manchester City for a fee that made him, at the time, the most expensive British footballer in history. Expectations were enormous. So was the pressure. 2022-23, Grealish delivers. 50 appearances. A key part of the treble-winning side, Premier League, FA Cup, and Champions League, all in a single season. For 1 year, the price tag looked like a bargain. For a while, it looked like everything had gone exactly according to plan. Then something changed. The following season, his output collapsed. A handful of goals. A handful of assists. Across 36 appearances, production that would have been considered a disappointing season for a squad player, let alone a £100 million starter. England's manager left him out of the Euro 2024 squad entirely, a tournament snub for a player who, 2 years earlier, looked like a guaranteed starter for his country. Grealish didn't disappear quietly. He posted from a Juventus training pitch during his summer off, working on his fitness in the Italian heat, the kind of quiet statement athletes make when they want the world to know they haven't given up. It didn't change what had already happened. He'd fallen out of the picture, and the picture kept moving without him. Last season, City sent him out on loan to Everton. For a player who'd been a Champions League winner 2 seasons earlier, a loan move to a mid-table Premier League club was, by any honest measure, a demotion. Not a punishment exactly, clubs loan players for all kinds of reasons, but a signal. A £100 million signing, on loan, at 30 years old, looking for playing time somewhere his own manager wasn't giving him any. And then, in January, it got worse. A foot injury. Serious enough to require surgery. Serious enough to end his loan spell at Everton early. And serious enough, ultimately, to end any realistic chance he had of forcing his way into England's World Cup squad this summer, a tournament he might have gone to as a hero in 2023, and watched from home in 2026. He hasn't played a competitive match since January. So here's where it stands now. Manchester City has a new manager, Enzo Maresca, brought in to reshape the squad after Pep Guardiola's departure. Preseason begins. 28 players are named for the Asian Tour, Hong Kong against Inter Milan, Seoul against the K-League All-Stars, then Atletico Madrid. Grealish returned to training with the club just days before the squad list was announced. He didn't make the flight. The official explanation is simple, and it might genuinely be the whole story. He's still recovering from that foot injury, still building match fitness after 7 months out, and the club wants him working through rehabilitation in Manchester rather than risking a longer trip and a compressed preseason schedule. That's plausible. It's also worth noticing what it doesn't fully explain. Because Grealish wasn't the only player left at home. Several England internationals who reached the World Cup quarterfinals were also excluded, given rest after a long, exhausting tournament. That's a completely different situation. Those players earned their rest by playing deep into the summer for their countries. Grealish didn't play in the World Cup at all. He'd already had 7 months off. The rest explanation, the one that applies to the quarterfinalists, simply doesn't apply to him. If that official explanation had convinced everyone, this would have been the end of the story. It didn't. So when reports characterized his absence as being left out, Grealish didn't take it quietly. He responded publicly on social media, visibly frustrated at the framing, a small moment, but a telling one. This is a player who still clearly believes he belongs in that squad photo, even as the football world increasingly writes him out of Manchester City's plans. Maresca, for his part, chose his words carefully when asked about him directly. At the moment, he is here. He is a Manchester City player, the Italian said. Then, almost as an aside, I have a good relationship with Jack since I left. He has a big heart and he is a very good guy. Then we will see what happens. Read that quote again slowly. At the moment, he is here. Not he's part of my plans. Not I'm excited to work with him. A factual statement about his current employment status, followed by a personal character reference, followed by 4 words that leave every door open. We will see what happens. That's not the language of a manager building a season around a player. That's the language of a manager being diplomatic about someone who may not be in his season at all. Managers say we will see what happens about players all the time. Most of the time, it means nothing, a throwaway line in a press conference nobody remembers by the next morning. This time, it was the only thing anyone remembered. Because by the time Maresca said it, Grealish was already 3,000 miles from where his teammates were training, and everybody watching understood exactly what those 4 words were actually doing, buying time, without making a promise. And this is where the picture gets clearer. While his teammates were boarding flights to Asia, Grealish posted from a very different location, training at facilities in Spain, at Real Mallorca's grounds, the same way he trained at Juventus's academy back when England had already left him out once before. The pattern is hard to miss. When Jack Grealish feels shut out, he doesn't disappear. He finds somewhere else to train and waits for someone to notice. 2 paths, and they couldn't look more different. One club offers another chance to compete. The other offers a fortune to walk away. Everton have been credited with interest in bringing him back, permanently this time, presumably at a significantly reduced fee. It's a strange kind of reunion to imagine, the club that watched his season end in surgery now being the one most willing to give him another chance, while the club that made him the most expensive British footballer in history quietly looks the other way. Then there's Saudi Arabia. Al Hilal have been credited with interest as well, the same door that swallowed 1 Ballon d'Or winner and a growing list of Premier League names before him. The money would be life-changing in a way European football simply can't offer. The trade-off is everything that made him worth £100 million in the first place. Here's the number that makes this whole situation feel especially strange. Grealish is 30 years old. In modern football, that's not old. Plenty of players are hitting their peak form in their early 30s, not their decline. His contract runs until 2027, 1 more year after this one. Manchester City are not desperate to offload him for financial reasons. This isn't a situation forced by money. It's a situation created entirely by form, fitness, and a new manager's priorities, 3 things that are, in theory, all still fixable. Which raises the real question underneath all of this. Is Jack Grealish actually finished as a top-level Premier League player? Or is this just the lowest point of a career that's been more volatile than most people remember? 1 bad season after a peak, 1 serious injury at the worst possible time, 1 new manager who hasn't decided what he thinks yet. Nobody at Manchester City has said, on the record, that his time there is over. Maresca's own words leave the door open, even if the tone suggests he's not rushing to walk through it. And Grealish himself, judging by his public reaction to being left out and his continued training in Spain, clearly hasn't accepted that his City career, or his career at the top level generally, is finished. But football has a way of moving on from players before those players are ready to be moved on from. 2 years ago, this man lifted the Champions League trophy in the same season he won the Premier League and the FA Cup, arguably the most complete season an English winger has had in a generation. That version of Jack Grealish existed. It wasn't manufactured, and it wasn't luck. It happened, on the biggest stages football has, less than 3 years ago. 2 years ago, Manchester City couldn't imagine winning without Jack Grealish. Today, they're preparing for a new season without even taking him on the plane. He's the same person who's now training alone in Spain, hoping his own club still has a place for him, just £100 million, one serious injury, and one missed World Cup later. Maybe he forces his way back in, and we will see what happens turns into a squad number and a starting 11. Or maybe one of those two very different offers decides his future for him, and English football simply stops talking about Jack Grealish the way it once couldn't stop talking about him. Nobody outside the dressing room knows which version of this story is actually being written right now. But somewhere in Spain, £100 million footballer who once lifted every trophy his sport has to offer is still waiting for his own club to decide if he's still part of the plan. 28 players boarded that flight to Hong Kong. Somewhere in the next 12 months, Jack Grealish finds his way onto a very different flight, one that decides, for good, whether Manchester City still has a seat saved for him. 2 years ago, everyone in football knew exactly who Jack Grealish was. The hardest part was never missing that flight to Hong Kong. It's the growing possibility that when he's ready to come back, the club he left behind might not be waiting for him.